Welcome back to the advisory deck. Joined again by James McGill. How are you, James?
Good, Troy, thanks.
Good to hear. We've just come out of a conversation with a client we're doing a strategic planning process with, and we thought the timing was eerie, and the topic is really important to all business owners and leaders. And it's a case of a couple of new opportunities bubbling onto the strategic plan, but the conversation going to, well, we only have finite capsules of time, resources, money, energy. Something's got to give. What gives? And how do we make the decision about what gives? And I think that's a really interesting topic relevant to every leader right now who, as they're considering new market opportunities, might be new product opportunities, new customer groups, changing something because of what 2020 did to their business thinking, and great, shiny new ideas coming in, but there's only 24 hours in a day. There's only so much in the kind of resource bank that we have as well. How do we make the decision? Pretty common topic to all business leaders, right, James?
It is, and it's one that often feels, whether it's a project team, an admin team, whatever, with dread. When you come back from hopefully a couple of weeks of leave at Christmas time, the CEO or the business owners come back with some great new ideas. If you have a more structured approach to strategic planning, they come back and go, right, we're getting into February or March, we're starting to do our planning for the year so we can get our budgeting done and kick off the new financial year. I've got all these great ideas, here they are, team, go and make them happen. And it can be really difficult to push back on those and go, well, we'd need 30 people for that and $1 million, and we've got 3 people and $10,000. How do we go through that discussion? And I think that's the something has to give piece. There's ways to go through that discussion, but a big part of it is the culture and the ability to be able to frame up a discussion so it's not a subjective piece where someone's just seen as being negative and pushing back and saying, I don't want to do it, which can be quite common. And if you've got more of a dictatorial or a very strong-headed leader, they hear no, they don't like hearing no, right? You've got to have a no that's grounded on some sort of fact basis research. So I think that's part of the discussion as you head into strategy, to think about how are you going to make those decisions and what basis are you making the decisions about what's priority number 1, 2 or 10, because you can't do everything. So something has to give through that process. And I think that's the thinking that needs to be done before you get to strategy day, so you can figure out how do you navigate this process.
Yeah, the default position is, well, we've got great new opportunities X and Y, and let's keep also going along with, long tail product, long tail revenue stream. Maybe it's diminishing, but still giving us positive cash flow. So let's do both and just find a way to do it. And the reality is that something will give at some point in time, and you either make a strategic decision about that, or it just breaks. Boyle's law of gases says you keep adding stuff into a closed vessel, pressure's going to build, and at the end of the day, something breaks. So I think, again, thinking in terms of, how are we force ranking our opportunities and our strategic priorities and paths in advance? Are we doing it based on, potential size and time frames to be able to realise that with the resource set that we have? Are we doing it based on a risk assessment basis? But your comment around, do as much of the heavy lifting on the thinking in advance of a strategic conversation as you possibly can, because the reality is we simply can't fit it all in unless, you're willing to scale up to blazes to do it, and then your risk goes right up.
But my thinking on strategic planning and then the resource allocation is, and you run these workshops all the time, Troy, so I think you've got a process that works really well. The strategic planning day shouldn't be the day that people turn up and go, right, what do we do? That thinking, a lot of it thinking should come beforehand. So people turn up and there's some discussion before to say, here's the direction we're going, which is set by our vision. The vision, it's assumed that for each company, it evolves every year, but it doesn't change markedly. So people have some idea of where they're going. It's then about, what are the product changes or the service changes? So I think the opportunities, some of that work could be done beforehand, not to flesh out the whole business case, but to say, we've got these 7 opportunities and we've had teams or people that have had a preliminary look at them. They understand with some degree what it could look like for that company to deliver. To then try and assess them and say, well, great, we have 7 ideas, we can't do them all. How do we compare them? I think that thinking beforehand, which allows people to come and compare idea 1 to idea 7, is tell us when you come to the strategic planning day, how many customers would this impact, or how many customers do you think this could impact, could attract? What dollars do you think this has to require in terms of rolling something out? Are there regulatory issues? Are there system issues? Now, this doesn't have to be deep dive business case, but if you're talking about one idea that sounds great, but it's going to take $3 million and hopefully win 5,000 customers, that may not be as good as an idea that takes $20,000 to win 500 customers. So being able to compare that, contrast them, and say, okay, well, that sounds great. If we had the money, that would be the number one idea, but we don't. If we had the resources, that would be the best idea, but we don't. I think when there's that framework that doesn't say an idea should be rejected or not as an idea, but allows you to compare and contrast, makes it easier to move from being a subjective discussion to an objective discussion that's grounded in the realities of what your business can actually achieve. And then you can say, look, that might be an aspirational goal. We can work towards that one because it could be a fantastic goal, but we just don't have the resources to do it. And then it's not about who wants to push that project. The challenge with that, of course, is getting whoever's making the decision, the board, leadership team, owner team, whatever it is, to agree that that framework is the right one. I think without that, then you've got a bit of an unknown, because people are going to say, well, that was great, but we're doing this anyway, so what was the point in that discussion?
It really touches on what we're talking on a previous episode with Chris Organ about systems thinking and kind of root cause analysis. What's the question we really need to address here? What, given what we have available to us, will be, based on our ambitions, our current situation, resource, etc., is the best decision for us, and force ranking in that way. And I think this idea that, and no one ever likes to kind of, shoot their Bambi of an idea, or this is my department and how do you kind of potentially cut off the project my department's doing to pursue another thing over here. My thing shouldn't be the thing that has to give. Getting over that is the cold hard reality of running a business, because you simply cannot do it all. Something will give.
It's where culture, and we've spoken about culture before, and I'm sure we'll keep on speaking about it, the culture of the organisation where people understand the vision, the resourcing, the decision-making process. They understand you can't do everything, so it's not personal. I think it's about what's best for the organisation, which is what's best for the customer, and what's best to be delivered by the employees. Understanding that is critical, so you don't have that issue of being a negative culture where my idea gets shot down all the time, so why would I bother? If your idea gets shot down, you understand why. It's because it takes $3 million and is going to maybe win 5 customers. Well, okay, if you think that's a great idea against this framework, maybe this culture in the organisation isn't the right place for you. But again, that's a decision that comes back to some facts that are objective, rather than people just feeling like they're being put in the back corner because no one likes their idea.
We think this is a consequence of innovation, and because people coming out of a challenging era thinking about new ways, new paths, new markets, new products and services, that's wonderful. But when you bring new stuff in, something's got to give. So don't just let it give by accident. Let it give strategically, and have a method and have a process based on your organisation and what's going on within it. If that's something that kind of resonates with you and you know that that's important, but you haven't yet gone through that process, it is how James and I help clients via the advisory deck services. So please reach out to us via the details below. We'll come and sit down and have a conversation with you about it. Regardless, make sure you've had that discussion in advance of your strat planning process, so you don't just keep loading and loading and loading. Right?
That's it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the advisory deck today. Look forward to seeing you next episode.